Welcome to Naked and Not Ashamed. I'm your host, Lateka Carter. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you've already been enjoying what we have out there, but this one is really, really good. We have the parents with us, the parents in their summit to talk about what they're going through. Stay tuned. You cannot miss this episode.
I'm naked, I'm naked, I'm naked and not ashamed.
Oh God.
I'm naked, oh yeah, I'm naked, and not ashamed.
Welcome to the Naked and Not Ashamed with your host, Lateka Carter.
And not ashamed.
Hello, I'm the host, Lateka Carter, and you're here for the Parent Summit. Hope you've already enjoyed the Teen Summit and you're not just tuning into this one, but however, if you are, we're glad to have you. We're joined here with a mother and a father of teenagers. If you'll please give them your name.
My name is Tiffany Brown.
Okay, Tiffany. How many children do you have?
I have 4 girls.
All girls. Oh, wow. Okay, and you'll tell them who you are?
Brian McNeil, I have 5 children.
5 children.
I have a 23-year-old daughter, a 22-year-old son. I have a 20-year-old daughter. I have a 15-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old son.
Wow. So you're all up in there, been there, done that, still doing that. Awesome. And of course, I'm a mother of 3. I've raised all mine. My youngest one is 19. My oldest one is 23. Yep, been there, done that. Parents, I know how you feel, how you have felt. So what is it like being a mother and, of course, a father, a parent of teenagers this day and time that we live in?
I find it to be very difficult. Being that my husband and I are older parents than most of my children's parents, I find it very hard because we raise our children the way that we were raised, and our parents were older, and so I find it to be very difficult.
Okay. And what about you?
I have to say it's much more challenging, I think. Raising a child today, it's challenging in a way, but also easier in some ways too, because we have more information now. We have better tactics. We have better learning. We can learn stuff, and we have better access to our children. I remember when I was a teenager, when I left the house in the morning, my mother had no idea what was going on until I returned home.
Right.
But now we can reach out to them and call them. We can follow up with them. We can see what they post. So I do believe that helps us a lot, you know.
All right. Now, for me, it was challenging, very challenging, because I was a teenage mother growing up with my children. So it was very challenging then, like you said, being an older parent raising your children and you having your children in different places in the age bracket. But for me, it was really challenging because I still dealt with peer pressure. I still dealt with how to be a parent. I dealt with the things of I still want to have a life and wrestle with that and want to set a standard for my children. So those are the things that I dealt with. And even when it came to raising them, it was trying to figure out what is the best way to raise them when their father was deceased, when he did die. Then I became a single parent, not really knowing what to do and still being young, in my 30s, with teenagers, pulling my hair out, not knowing what to do. So for me, I'm going to ask you two the same thing, but I'm going to go ahead and go first. What was the most difficult thing that you had to deal with in raising your children? And I'm going to go ahead and answer that. And then you two can follow. For me, the most difficult thing with raising my teens was the pressure that they faced in life to fit in. And who they said they wanted to be because of the media, because of TV, and who they, all those type of things that you're wrestling with as a parent. Like you said, even going back to raising them the way that you were raised, which I found sometimes it's not always good because it's a whole different society. And I had to wrestle a lot with just the peer pressure from other kids, oh, their parents let them do this, or they have this type of kicks they get to wear, and all this type of stuff. They have a cell phone, or just so much stuff that you just, when you're trying to pay the bills and you're trying to set a standard for them, I felt myself wrestling with the pressure that they were up against to want to fit in, and trying to explain to them, no, you can't do that. Why not? Because I said so. Until they called me on that because I said so. We're going to talk about that later. Now, what about you?
Totally agree with you. The hardest thing for me is just trying to get my children to understand that you don't have to do what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
This is really hard trying to get them to understand, and yeah, they're listening, but then they're not doing what you're saying. So that has been hard for me, and also the friends that they choose. That is very difficult for me, and trying not to choose their friends for them. I sometimes find myself trying to keep my children away from certain friends, and the more that I try to keep them away, the closer that they get with their friends. So I just try to keep the line of communication open with them so that they can just continue to talk to me. I've backed away from trying to keep them from their friends and just allow them to make that decision on their own.
True. What about you, Barney?
My situation is challenging but not unique because I'm divorced from their mother. And so I saw my children every other weekend. And the challenge, especially going through the teenage years, is you want to guide. You want to teach them some stuff. You want to feel that you've done a good job during the most formative years, the first 8 years of their life, where they know right from wrong. You want to feel like that, and you want to feel like you can unleash them on an unsuspecting world, and they'll be fine. They'll make the right decisions. But you still, you always, you never know, okay? So I found myself trying to ask a lot of pointed questions, trying to be as protective of my children as possible, but at the same time, giving them rope, giving them room, because I want them to grow, I want them to develop. I do believe there's something to be said about, bumping your head here and there and suffering the consequences for that, and stretching a little bit. So it is a challenge, trying to be very, like you were saying, you want to keep the line of communication open. You want to be very, very involved, but you also have to do it sometimes in a hands-off kind of way. It's a really, really difficult thing to finesse, but it's worth the effort.
It is. It is very much worth the effort. Now, going back to what you said as far as dealing with the teens and their friends and wanting them to, you want them to pick good friends. As parents, we want them to understand, like you said, you're going to bump against the wall. You're going to hurt yourself. You got to suffer the consequences and everything. And I think as parents, we get to the point where we've already been there. We've already done it. So we're like, hey, slow down. It's all right. You don't have to do this, that, and the other. We try to tell them and explain to them why they shouldn't do some of the things that they do, and hoping that they can see, well, look, when I was your age, this is what happened to me, and this is what I'm trying to keep you from experiencing. And then you have some children say, look, I want to experience life myself. Even though you're giving good stuff to me, I don't want to, they don't want to listen to that. And going to the part about the children that they want to bring home or they want to hang out with, what would you say is the best way that a parent can guide their child when they know they're with someone they shouldn't be with? And I think a lot of parents, you feel me right now,
a lot of praying.
Yeah. So what are the things that you feel, what can we give other people that are watching as parents advice on when it comes to, especially that boy, you trying to tell your girl, no, that's not the right one, or that's it, vice versa. It's just not it.
Well, I tried a different strategy, and that seems to be working a little better. I'll allow a particular friend that I didn't care too much for to come to our home. And I began to be an example for that child.
There you go.
And I began to talk to that child and just try to get an understanding of what was going on in that child's life.
Mm-hmm.
And then I try to become positive for that child. And when that child comes to my home, that child is great. I have no problems with that child, but I do know that the child can be a bad influence. But I've seen a lot of growth in my child and that child by being an example for the both of them. So I tried a different strategy other than just trying to pull my daughter away from the child. I decided to open my arms and invite the child in. And the child maybe could see life a little different and more positive than what the child had been seeing before.
Okay.
And that seems to be working for now.
But that's good. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, Brian, I have a question for you. As a dad, having to see their children every other week, how was it different in raising them and them still listening to you and following what you're saying? When we come back, we're going to hear Brian's answer.
Hi, my name is Graylin Brown here at Challenge Florist and Coffee House, where we have many floral designs to fit your floral needs. We also provide coffees for many different countries, such as Tanzania, Ugandan, Walla Walla, and our very own House Blend. Come see us at 709 East Market Street, Greensboro, North Carolina. Family owned and operated. Thank you.
Here we go again. Just T Entertainment proudly presents Prelude to Homecoming 2014. Featuring Grammy and Stella Award winner Jay Moss. Friday, October 17th at the Dynacon Event Center, 2100 East Windover Avenue, Greensboro, North Carolina. And back by popular demand, Christopher Lewis and the band leaders. Also performing the phenomenal neo-soul artist Avery Sunshine and the smooth sounds of gospel jazz artist Ray Ellis. Doors open at 6 and the party begins at 7. For more information to purchase your tickets, please visit our website, www.jesttee.com. That's www.jesttee.com. Or call 1-855-JEST-T. That number again is 1-855-537-7833. We'll see you there.
Welcome back to Naked and Not Ashamed. I'm your host, Lateka Carter, surrounded here by the beautiful Queen here and the beautiful Key. Handsome Key here. When we first left, I asked Brian a question about being a father, having to see his children every other week. What was it like in them listening to him and wanting to take his advice?
It wasn't as bad as you might think because I was in the same city.
Right.
Okay. And we have the telephone as well. But still nothing like being there every single night.
Right.
But you want to pour into your children as much as you can. And, I'm really, you pour so much into them. So I have to say I'm really happy into the young men and women that my children have developed into. But they remind me of some of the stuff I used to pour into them. And it kind of tickles me. But it brings to mind, and maybe you two ladies, this might not sound great, okay? But maybe you have the same dynamic. I think the key now, more so than anything, is patience.
Oh.
Because the teenagers today, and they really believe they're making sense with it, but they really say some dumb stuff. But how could they not? Because they're coming on only 15 years of life on this earth, or 16 years of life on this earth, so they don't know enough yet. But it makes sense to them. So I have to pray for patience to listen to this thing that they really believe is how the world works, and it just really doesn't okay.
Right.
Well, let me help you out here, okay?
Uh-huh.
So I think the key is patience with them.
All right. That sounds good. Now, as parents, I'm going to speak on me as a single mother raising my children, you as a wife who has a husband in a home, so you have both parents in the home, and you who have been divorced having to see your kids like you do. When it comes to the things that we as adults wrestle with the most, what is it that we want our children, our teenagers to understand? You talk about patience.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that we would want them to understand about us so that they would be able to understand this is why we say the things that we say, we do the things that we do, and we want you to have a better life? What do you think you wrestle with the most in getting through to them?
It's fears. Okay. What I want them to understand about their dad, and I'm grateful that they do, that their dad really, really, really wants the best for them.
Yeah.
But I have some fears because I can't watch them 24 hours a day. I'm concerned about teenagers having sex because I really don't want them to do it.
Right.
I'm concerned about them experimenting with drugs because I really don't want them to do it. I'm concerned about them associating with the wrong people because I really don't want them to do it. So the only thing is, I want them to understand that their dad really wants the very best for them, and I want them to do the very best for themselves, and I want them to make right decisions. That is what I care about more than anything else. I want them to know that I am much more concerned with them than I am with their friends, first off, as their parent. And I care a great deal about their day-to-day activities.
Right. That's good.
I totally agree with what you said. I want my kids to understand that I've been there, done that.
Mm-hmm.
Understand the reason that I am asking you and telling you to do these things is because I've been there, done that. And I really want them to understand that I'm telling you these things to save you. You know, I can't be with you 24/7. But these are things that I want you to take with you so that when I'm not with you, you hear my voice. You hear me, even though I'm not there. Mm-hmm. And this is what I want them to understand. And I always tell my kids, you know, yes, I would like you to be a doctor. Yes, I would like you to be a lawyer. But most of all, I want you to love yourself and know who you are.
Yes.
More so than anything. And to know God.
Yes. Most definitely.
And no matter what you do in life, just to always keep you first. Mm-hmm. And that I will be proud of you no matter what you do. As long as you're doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. And as long as that is what's in your heart. Mm-hmm. So this is what I always want my kids to understand. Mm-hmm. Don't feel like if you make a mistake, you can't tell me. Mm-hmm. Or that you can't try to correct the mistake you made. Mm-hmm. It's okay. Mm-hmm. We all make mistakes and we all fall. Mm-hmm. So this is what I want them to understand. I don't want my kids to feel like, okay, they can't talk to me, they can't come to me, they can't make a mistake, that they have to be perfect, or that I have to be this and that. No. I just want you to know God, to always strive just to be the best that you can be for you.
Right.
I do want to just piggyback this moment, please, because one of the things I've often said to them, and there's nothing you can do that I won't love you still. Okay, there's nothing.
Exactly.
There's nothing you can do that I'm still not going to love you. Okay, even if I chastise you or rebuke you, I'm still going to love you no matter what you do. And I think that dominant thought has kept them in some situations.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're fine.
That's true.
That is very true. Now, I can say with me, it's both. You know, both of what you all said. I've already raised mine. For me, being in that position, even as teens, even as a mother now, I faced a lot of fears. The fear that they would do the same thing that I did. Mm. The fear that I would raise them in the same type of way that I was raised. Dealing with some of the things that I had to deal with. No, I didn't want them to grow up without having their father in the home. But life happened.
That's right.
And it happened. And I had to learn how to put on both. You know, I had to learn how to be a mother, not trying to be a father, but to be a good role model for them. And to help them understand it's not about survival, but teaching them survival tactics in life. Teaching them how to make mistakes, like you said, but come back. Not teaching them to make mistakes, but when they make mistakes, teaching them how to bounce back from those mistakes that they made. And of course, loving them, letting them know always, I love you, always being the one to pour into them, that they didn't need someone else outside of the home to speak life into them, or to let, for me, my daughter, tell her all the time, you're beautiful. Tell her all the time she had this going on for herself. Just so many positive things I tried my best to pour into her, because I knew what it was like not to have a father in the home, and just wanted to hear someone tell you, you're pretty, you're so nice, you're this and you're that. And I didn't want her to have to go to a man, for him to have to tell her that and then experience that. And then with my sons, my biggest fear was, God, I don't know what to tell them. I don't know what it's like to be a young man or a boy. So my fear was, how do I teach my sons to be good young men, to grow into men? How do I teach them to be that husband? How do I teach them to let God be in their life and guide them and lead them without overstepping those boundaries of putting pressure on them? Because sometimes parents can put so much pressure on our children. We make them feel like you have to do this and you have to do that, and especially religion. We talk so much religion into our children, and even being at church every time the door opened, all this other stuff. It was so many things that I did that I thought was good. But as I grew with my children, they later came back and told me. And I had to apologize to them. I said, I messed up along the way. There were some things that I could have done better, but I was so busy trying to take care of you that I didn't understand. And I had to go back. And there's nothing wrong with that. Parents going back and apologizing to their children. It shows the human side of us. It shows the loving side of us, the compassion side of us. And I let them talk to me. Not talk at me, but talk to me. Well, Mom, when you did this is why I couldn't do this, and this is why this happened, and Mom, you didn't, and you weren't. So I had to suck that stuff in. Because at that time, I felt like I was doing the best that I knew how to do. And it's okay, even as parents, that we realize we don't know everything.
That's what I keep hearing in your what you just said there. Who taught you how to be a parent?
Exactly.
No one did.
That's right.
Okay, so you were figuring it out live speed
with
no instructions. Okay?
Exactly.
But that does not have to be today's parents' reality.
Exactly.
Because they can find instruction. They can seek out help. I facilitate the teenagers and men's group, and the two dynamics that I just heard you say. You got the parents that are overly strict and pouring church all the time, very narrow roads, and then you also have some parents that completely take their hands off of the child, even at 15 or 14 or 12 even. Their hands are off sometimes, and letting the child trying to figure it out because they give up, they get tired, they got weary and well-doing, they're frustrated with the process. I'm a single mom and I don't know how to raise this boy and this boy this, and somebody else do it, I'm done. So it's a challenge, neither one of them is the right path, so there's something in between. So it is worth it for the parents to seek out help.
Exactly.
You need help.
You do. We as parents have to understand, how do we go and be okay going to someone else and talk to them and let them help pour into us? We have to have a place where we can vent, somewhere where we can go in and take the pressure off of us. So when we come back, we're going to wrap this up.
Hi, my name is Graylin Brown here at Challenge Florist and Coffee House, where we have many floral designs to fit your floral needs. We also provide coffees for many different countries, such as Tanzania, Ugandan, Walla Walla, and our very own House Blend. Come see us at 709 East Market Street, Greensboro, North Carolina. Family owned and operated. Thank you.
Here we go again. Just T Entertainment proudly presents Prelude to Homecoming 2014. featuring Grammy and Stella Award winner Jay Moss. Friday, October 17th at the Dynacon Event Center, 2100 East Windover Avenue, Greensboro, North Carolina. And back by popular demand, Christopher Lewis and the Band Leaders. Also performing the phenomenal neo-soul artist Avery Sunshine and the smooth sounds of gospel jazz artist Ray Ellis. Doors open at 6 and the party begins at 7. For more information to purchase your tickets, please visit our website, www.jesttee.com. That's www.jesttee.com. Or call 1-855-JEST-T. That number again is 1-855-537-7833. We'll see you there.
Welcome back to Naked and Not Ashamed. I hope you have enjoyed what we have already talked about, because we have been talking some juicy stuff while you all weren't watching. So when we left the show for a commercial, we talked about the things that parents go through. We go through a whole lot of things, a whole lot of emotions outside of being a parent. And sometimes we don't always make the right choices, give the right answers, deal with it the best way that we really can. Now, I'm really talking about those who feel, I guess the question is, how do I deal with me and still dealing with my child? How do I balance out everything? Because that was something that you had talked about. What's balancing out everything?
Yeah, and that it's sometimes difficult.
It is.
Because as the children are changing and growing, you're also changing and growing as well.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, especially when you have 4 children,
Mm-hmm.
you have 4 daughters, different ages. Our children are 4, 8, 13, 15,
They're
16.
not great ages.
So they're all different ages, all different stages.
All goes.
All got hair.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of pressure for you as a mother.
It is. But what has been a blessing is having both parents.
Right.
In the home.
Right.
Which we do have a blended family.
Mm-hmm.
My oldest is my stepdaughter.
Okay.
But we just try to balance it together.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm tired or when I can't feel like I can't go any further for the day, for the week, then I find time for myself
Mm-hmm.
to try to get myself together and just be prepared to start over the next day with the children.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but that's something as parents that we have to remember, is that we always have to have some time for ourselves, to gather our thoughts, to make sure that we're where we need to be
Right.
be able to deal with the children.
Right.
And that's very important.
Now, even as me speaking on a single parent, not having that, I'm just going to be real. This is Naked and Not Ashamed. For me, I was the screamer, the yeller, the fusser. I was the one that poured out what I felt out of my mouth and out of what I was dealing with. Having to raise my children alone. My mother helped out tremendously. Having to pay all the bills myself and trying to climb the corporate ladder with having to start over and just so many different pressures that I felt. It wasn't good for me to yell, to scream. You mentioned we should have a parent group where we are able to come together and talk. Now, the thing for me was I didn't have that where I could just go and have someone say, Lateka, you don't have to yell at your child. Now, I heard my children tell me that, Mom, you don't have to yell at me. You know?
They didn't know anything. So.
Yeah, right. But I had to learn how to pull that back. I had to learn how to deal with my problems as it comes about and not deal with them on the back burner. Because what happened for me, I blew up. I kept holding everything in. I took anger management. Yep, that was me. I took anger management and I began to see myself. And I was the one that blew up on whomever it was in front of me when I couldn't take it anymore. So I had to decide, I don't want to be that woman. I don't want to raise my children the way I was raised or the way someone else was raised. This is a different time. God has a place in their life that he's calling them to be. How does he want me to raise my children? And I asked him that question. Help me to raise the children the way you want me to raise them. And I got ridiculed behind it because I wasn't raising them the way someone else would raise them. But I look at my children now and I'm so grateful that I listened to God and not to them.
I gotta say this, parents. I've heard it said that parents need a commercial break from their children sometimes.
Yeah.
And children sometimes need a commercial break from their parents.
Yes.
Not long, but a commercial break, And even Jesus sometimes, the Son of Man, had to separate himself from everybody else to be at one with him and God, to commune. Even the one that walked this earth with no sin still could not stay in the fray all the time effectively.
Right.
Parents, you can't do it either.
Yeah.
You do have to figure out a way, come up with a strategy that you can take a commercial break. Maybe it's a day, maybe it's a lunch break or something, but you have to get away to commune by yourself and then come back anew, refreshed. Get some recreation. If you take apart the word recreation, recreate.
Yes.
Parents, you have to constantly do that. If you don't, you're going to be less and less and less of the effective person that you can be.
Yes.
And we have to also learn to choose our battles.
Yes, we do.
How we're going to fight those battles.
Yes.
Sometimes you can lose the war
Yes.
trying to fight one battle. Yeah. So what I've learned is that you can choose your battles that you're going to fight and how you're going to fight them to win the war. And that's what I've learned a lot with raising my children, just life in general. And that comes to, you said, patience, learning patience. I had my children when I was a little older, and my mom was older when she had me, so I was able to get a lot of wisdom from my mother and how she raised us. And my mom never did a lot of yelling. My dad did. But my mother and father were married, for about 53 years. Wow. So I was raised in a two-parent home, but my dad yelled a lot. And when we were younger, but things changed over time. But my mom didn't do that, and she would always talk to us. And she was the type of parent that when she spoke, for some reason, you listened. And that was it. She just had that impact. She didn't have to yell. So, as you get older, you learn that you just choose your battles and how you're going to fight them and which ones for each child, because each child is different. And I find myself disciplining the children differently, So that's what I'm learning with raising them.
And let's talk about that discipline before we close out this show. When it comes to disciplining the children, you're in a home of two. You have to deal with your children. Yeah, I'm sure you get the phone calls saying, Brian, look, this is going on. And you
gotta tell you.
Yeah. So even for me, it was disciplining my children alone. They didn't have anyone to go to say, Dad said this, Mom. For a certain period of time, they couldn't. Before, it was like, go ask your mama. Whatever mama said went.
Let me say, the best advice I ever got on raising a child, I got before my first child was born. He told me, the elderly gentleman told me, if you don't have your children completely raised by the time they're 4 years old, you're done. Okay, you got to have them completely raised, and they have to understand by 4 right from wrong, and what mom says goes, what dad says goes by the age of 4. And I took that seriously. I did respect my children. I did discipline them that way, and I gave them every but that I felt they earned. I never gave them to anyone for the sport of it, And I talked to them. I would give them what's called the chair. Now, if you were the dad hearing the same thing that your son did, how would you handle this? And a lot of times they would issue a punishment worse than when I was planning. Okay?
So that's what you want, right?
And that's what you would do if you were the dad here to make sure it doesn't happen. My dad, I had 3 younger sisters. And my dad gave us every butt whooping that we earned, but he never just spanked us. No. he would talk to us first, and the talk was long. And we dreaded the talk. We would just try to hurry past the talk to get the whooping.
Yeah.
But he wasn't going to play that.
That's done and
Yeah.
Okay.
So how is it nowadays? You know, we know the stitchy cords not in too much like it used to be. The switches on the trees, you know, coming from the trees, all the other stuff. Now it's more or less take away the devices, take away their privileges. How is disciplining the children now? How is it working in a good way now, do you think?
Well, we still discipline the old way.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that's just how we discipline.
Right.
That's what works for us. Right. Kids now take away sometimes that it doesn't matter to them. For my children, I mean, you can take the phone away, okay, fine. You know, you can take the iPod. For my kids, that doesn't matter. But the old discipline way, it does. Mm-hmm. And I started them out that way when they were little, that makes a difference for them. Mm-hmm. I didn't start it when they were 5, 4, 6. Mm-hmm. We disciplined that way from start. Mm-hmm. So that's what they fear. Mm-hmm. Because that's what we put into them from the beginning. We didn't wait until later when things really got out of hand. Okay, this is what we're going to do now. Right. We started when they were small, and you know, you're not supposed to touch this on the table. You're not supposed to be on the chairs. When you go places, this is what you do. And then they didn't do that. We didn't say, give me the baby doll. Right. Because they'll count, nowadays kids, you know, they'll count their fingers or whatever, and that's, you know, they'll talk to them, they'll play with themselves, and that's entertainment. Take the doll. You know? So we started out when they were small that, you know, you don't touch that. This is what we need. And we stay with them.
I did a workshop not long ago, and one of the ladies that was running it, she had her 10-year-old son there. And he wanted his mom's attention. He was just yanking her real hard, and he was boisterous all over the place, and it was very difficult for her to manage him. And I'm seeing all of this going on. So I said, how old is your son? He's 10. And I said, how are you going to handle this? You know, he's being really bad today. Well, I'll talk to him about it when I get home. I said, okay, are you going to handle it? You going to beat his butt? No, I would never hit him. You would never hit him. You never have hit him. I'm a single mom. I don't believe in hitting my children ever. Okay? But I've watched you out in public in a place where you needed him to be calm, you needed to be quiet, and he's losing his mind and yanking on you, really physically, you know, trying to get your attention. So I feel sad for that one. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah. So the thing is, you have to learn how to discipline, and you have to discipline. We as adults, we still get disciplined by God to help us understand. Get your butt back over there. You know, do the things that you need to do. So, what advice can you give any parent out there that's watching when it comes to raising teenagers before we go off the air?
My advice is just to always be an example. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, the best teacher is to stand an example of what you're saying. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, if you are hanging out in the streets and you're, you know, trying to hang out all night and you come back to be a parent, or you hang out all night and you're doing all this and you get up the next morning and you try to take them to church and say, you need to do this. I mean, I just think we should just be a good teacher.
Yeah.
And let them follow, because even though sometimes as adults we may venture out from what we know or what we were taught, but there's always something in us, inside of us, that takes us back to where we need to be. And it may take time, but you always result back to where you need to be. So if this is what you've seen, and this is what you've seen in your home all your life, you'll result back to it. Even though they may stray away, they'll come back home.
I think 2 things. One is to talk to them a lot. But I've asked my children at all different age brackets, should I ask you more questions or less questions? You know, because I ask them a lot. Would you rather ask you more questions or less questions? And they always say they would rather ask more because they really want their parents to know them. You know, even if I ask them a lot of questions over the course of time, am I asking you enough questions or should I ask you more? Well, you should ask me more, you know, really. And there might be some moments where they don't want me to ask questions when they know they got their hand caught in the cookie jar. Okay, but other than that, I think asking our children, I think we can't overdo it, even if we think we will. overdo it. I think we need to talk to them more and ask them more.
And if there's some things that you want to get at that you think is going on with them, sometimes you have to create conversations outside of that to get to that. You
Or
have
directly.
to create a conversation with your child sometimes, and then it leads to what you want to know. It's like getting what you want without directly getting it. So sometimes, that's how you have to deal with your children. All children are not. I have a child that doesn't conversate a lot. You can ask, yes, no, fine, today's good, and they won't talk. So I've had to learn to create conversations to get to really what I want to know.
That's good. So the only thing that I would have to say is piggybacking off of what you said, which is, as parents, we are the leaders. Wherever we go, our children are following. So if you're going down the wrong path, guess what? They too will go down the wrong path. Wherever you want them to go, lead the way. I'm your host, Lateka Carter, and I thank my guests for being a part of Naked and Not Ashamed Parent Summit here. Hope you enjoy the rest of your week.